I will never vote in an election again.
Country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
The media is so much more controlled and so much more prevalent. I mean, not only do you have like a 24-hour news cycle, but we have our phones, and so people are receiving information all the time. And of course, most of us think the information comes from these independent or trustworthy sources. And very few people look behind those to see, well, who owns that? Where's that information actually coming from? And they kind of dismiss that as conspiratorial, but it's pretty easy to find now. Most people can just go on Yahoo Finance and look at who owns the companies that are behind the medias that we absorb. And so most of those opinions are coming from a purposeful point of view to keep people separated. So it's definitely easier to be for the populace to be manipulated today than it ever has been in modern history.
We are letting social media run our lives. Several years ago, we'd read a newspaper and the information would get to us so much later. But now with TikTok, Facebook, all these other social media apps, we're able to get so much more information. Now, the problem is, are we getting the right information? Are people doing the right research? That's where we're getting a lot of the issues.
Right.
Who's really running the show? You have international bankers that have run the world for hundreds of years. So research the Warburgs and the Rothschilds and the JP Morgans. So that's who owns the media, and that's who owns our politicians. There are no more um, sovereign nations, so to speak. Every nation is run by corporate uh, boards. BlackRock, that's one of the big companies, right? Or maybe Vanguard or State Street or Berkshire Hathaway. But if you'll go look at their boards, you'll see that they own each other. And then if you go try to find out who's on their boards, you're going to find that it's a very small group of people. So now we're in this very precarious situation where a handful of people run the world. Now I personally have my own views on what their reasons for that are, but there's no questioning what I just said. That statement is as true as it can be. And so why would we argue about their puppets, the politicians that are put in front of us to elect? Would probably have aligned more with the conservative, but I saw right away I didn't like him or his personality, and I never really have, to be honest. He's been a showman for many years, right? But it wasn't so much that, but I aligned with those ideas he was espousing the most. But what alarmed me was the reaction of everyone. I said, man, that looks staged. That doesn't look real. That looks like people are losing their minds over it. Half these people were friends with him the year before. I mean, give me a break. Some of these, I would name a few, but many of these famous people who were out screaming his name about how he was literally a white supremacist were besties with him 1 year before in 2015. Many of them, like Oprah and even Hillary, were asking him to run years before. So it's a show, and he's part of the show. In fact, I'll go so far as to say I believe he's the trump card because that's the game they like to play. They like to play this game of uh, of black and white, so to speak. Not speaking racially, but um, like pieces on a board. And so this has been in the works a long time, and they created a chasm where communication is almost impossible through Trump. Once Trump came in, that was the end of polite conversation.
Recognizing that there is some flawed laws and some corrupt higher ups in the government and things that need to be changed and reconciled and hurts that need to be healed in America. The best remedy to that is just first off accountability for it and taking action and having faith that we will all unite when the time comes in the moments that really matter.
I will never vote in an election again. And let me just say that as someone who, of course, once upon a time, I served my country and we were very naive back in the day and we thought those things were good things that we were supposed to do. And I stood on that and was proud of that, like we were taught to be, indoctrinated to be. What makes more sense? That the people who run the world would just roll the dice and say, well, let's just see who the people elect. If they elect the wrong person, drats, we'll have to go back to the drawing board with our trillions of dollars that are at stake. Or that they would rig the whole thing and make us think that we're actually voting. Which thing makes more sense? And I think through history, people can see that. There's no way that, for instance, Venezuela and Cuba were voting for these same people that were oppressing them all that time, but yet they were getting elected in supposedly democratic elections. But we think, oh, that doesn't happen here because we're America. What a joke, of course. So I think as we step back from those things, we see that that doesn't make sense and we should withdraw from that system. I think that once the people start to organize, and I don't mean a rebellion, I just mean community. Just saying we're not participating in that anymore. None of that's true. We're going to do this instead. I think they'll start to see a lot of change.